Thank you all so much for joining today's celebratory webinar on celebrating the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month through Farm to School. My name is Trisha Bautista. I'm a programs director at the National Farm to School Network. I'm so excited to welcome you all in today's session and feature some of our amazing partner organizations, and you're going to be hearing from them very shortly. Passing it on to my colleague, Jiyun.
Thanks, Trisha. Welcome, everyone. So excited that you're all here with us. I'm Jiyoon Chan. I'm the Communications Director at National Farm to School Network. And yeah, excited to welcome you all. Next slide. So to really quickly get to know who's in the room, I invite you all to just in the chat, introduce your name, what city or state you're from, and the school or organization you represent. And maybe just a short answer to the question, what strategies have you used to encourage students to try new flavors or foods? So for today's webinar, I'm personally really excited for this and I'm excited to introduce our speaker shortly. So we'll be hearing from two of our NFSN partner organizations on how they are centering community voice in school meals and farm to school and explore how history, culture, and place can strengthen farm to school and early care programs. And we hope you'll also be inspired by the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander flavors and the creative community engagement ideas that you'll see. And just excited to gather here to network and share resources in celebration of AANHPI Month. So just a really quick intro of who NFSN is in case anyone is not familiar. National Farm to School Network, our mission is to increase access to local food and nutrition education to improve children's health, strengthen family farms, and cultivate vibrant communities. And our vision in all of this is a nation in which farm to school programs are an essential component of strong and just local and regional food systems, ensuring the health of children, farms, the environment, the economy, and communities.
Yes. So the National Farm to School Network, we love to feature farm to school as an opportunity to connect folks across the food system. And the one farm to school, as many of us know, have three distinct pillars. So education, procurement, and school gardens. And a little bit about our network is that the National Farm to School Network is a hub for resources, networking, and advocacy. We work to connect people to information, to each other, and to policy and advocacy efforts that support the broader farm to school movement. Our network consists of over 500 partner organizations from across the country, including U.S. territories and sovereign nation. Since our network expansion in 2019, we have seen a tremendous growth in our partnerships. We have over 30% of our partner organizations saying that they are reaching and servicing 50% or more of communities who identify as BIPOC. And in recent years, we have also seen a tremendous growth in our place-based or community-based community organizations, including a majority of which are K-12 school districts. So this is really exciting because we know in the previous slide I showed you the farm to school pillars. Farm to school looks different in every community, and we want to make sure that we're elevating and showing what that looks like in each of the community and the broader movement. So, culturally relevant school meals and farm to school programs are important because they help students feel represented and connected to their communities. As a Filipino American who comes from an immigrant family, story, I appreciated seeing my food traditions in school programs. Although it wasn't super prevalent in school meals when I was in school, I don't think. I still love seeing, Filipino traditions and school meals in school-wide events and programs. And I just know, and that's something that I hold so dear in my memory. I distinctly remember having international food school fairs and Filipino American clubs in high school doing really fun activities after school. So, as many of you know, food is deeply tied to identity, family, and culture. And reflecting these elements in school meals and programs like Farm to School allows students to feel a sense of belonging. And that's really important and a sense of connection. We all know and understand how schools can really be a hub for many communities. It's also a great strategy to get students curious and excited about school meals and encouraging participation, reducing food waste, and creating opportunity for food education around different ingredients and flavors. So I encourage you all as we're navigating through this presentation today. You're hearing from these amazing speakers from our partner organization. I invite you to reflect on these questions. What does it mean for students to see themselves in school meals and farm to school programs? Whose traditions are centered and reflected in your cafeterias? And how can farm to school help students feel seen and connected, all while being nourished? So I am now super excited to hand over the mic to our very first speaker. Today, you will be hearing from City of Seattle and Seattle Public Schools. You'll first hear from Aaron Smith, who is the Director of Culinary Services at Seattle Public Schools, and then you're going to hear from Chris Iberly, the Food Policy and Program Strategic Advisors with the City of Seattle. After listening to their presentation, we're going to hand over the mic to our friends at the Hawaii State Department of Education. You're first going to hear from Weston Yap, the Farm to School Coordinator, followed by Jennifer Ryan, who's the School Garden Coordinator. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over the mic over to my colleague, Aaron Smith with the Seattle Public Schools. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for the intro. Hi, everyone. Aaron Smith, Director of Culinary Services for Seattle Public Schools, and I'm here presenting with Chris Iberly, Food Policy and Program Strategic Advisor for City of Seattle. So part of just program overview, part of our initiative is incorporating Asian American and Pacific Islander cultures into our school meal program. By doing so, we're not only diversifying our menus, but also create a more inclusive environment where students feel seen, valued, and connected to their cultural identities. We are intentionally integrating cultural, meaningful dishes into our menus to better reflect the diverse backgrounds of our student populations. Menus are developed to showcase authentic flavors, cooking techniques, and traditions. Helping expose students to broader culinary experience while honoring their heritage respectfully. We prioritize sourcing local and regional ingredients. This helps support the local economy, it ensures freshness, and align with our farm to school initiatives. We are creating opportunities for students' connections and belonging. Food is a great tool to help create conversations, opportunities for students to feel represented, and it helps create a safe and welcoming environment within the cafeteria. It also enhances participation, it supports cultural awareness, and it aligns with the district values around equity, representation, and being student-centered. Our approach to the menu development is really rooted in collaboration, cultural authenticity, and operational practicality. So it ensures that meals are both meaningful to students and is also feasible for our kitchen staff to execute it. So we engage in a lot of feedback opportunities from students, different stakeholders to better understand their cultural preference, what students are interested in, and expectations from the community. And then based on that information, we select dishes that reflect those traditions. We make sure that it's flavorful and it culturally represents them correctly, represent those communities and ensuring thoughtful representation. And then we go through a R&D process to make sure that the recipes are K-12 aligned, ingredients are available. We factor in our equipment limitations and staff capacity during this process. Then we conduct the actual tasting itself to get feedback from students to ensure that it's not only culturally relevant, but also appealing and well received. So this process allows us to introduce culturally inclusive meals that are student-centered, It meets the nutritional guidelines and operationally sustainable across all of our sites. So this is some of the items that one of the items that we featured this school year. So we bring in different chefs from different backgrounds to represent their culture, and then we take those recipes and test it out and make sure that it works for us that we can operationally do. So this work highlights how culturally relevant meals can successfully be integrated into the school meal program while supporting local sourcing. So one dishes we did a poi, which was made locally. We use local grown blueberries, and this dish really connects students to put the Pacific Islander traditions while aligning with our farm to school efforts. Chef Melissa did a chicken adobo recipe, which was Filipino inspired, which consistent with two AAPI cuisines, opportunities to build student recognition and acceptance. Over time, we put it on our cycle, and so we menu it every month. So we give students multiple opportunities to try it because sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times before a student is willing to try something new, especially something that they're not familiar with. And we also done a bao and kimchi fried rice, which we use, which was made from locally made. The kimchi was locally made with Washington grown cabbage. So this just demonstrates how cultural dishes can be incorporated into the standardized school menus. And it also leveraged the partnership to enhance freshness, community connection, and purchasing locally sourced items, and creates opportunities for students to get exposure to new flavors while other students get to see their cultures properly represented on the menu. So looking ahead, so we're continuing this initiative and working with different chefs. So one of our commitments is to evolve through like innovation, collaboration, and just intentionally menuing items that reflects diversity. As part of this, we also as we create these dishes, we create videos. So we share those videos with students, with families. So if they want to do it at home, they can. They get to hear the chefs really talk about their heritage and where they're from and how these dishes came about. So looking into next year, as we continue to expand, we are currently testing items like Korean vegetable japchae noodles with sesame beef, vegetable curry and crispy tofu, garlic, and a garlic ginger brown rice. Ongoing collaborations with these chefs and community partners helps supports the menu authenticity and provides culinary expertise. We've also worked with Chef Roy Yamaguchi with a short rib luau dish, which might not use short rib, but I like to dream big. Also, ulu and Yukon gratin and the lumi tomatoes. And so, some of these ideas in K-12 might seem like far-fetched, but we just like to put in the work to make sure that it works and it works financially and responsibly for the department. So we continue to build culturally responsive student-centered menus, expanding our chef connections and community partnerships, and introducing new dishes that that is balanced and student appeal. And one thing that I forgot to mention in the intro, because I'm horrible at introductions, at Seattle Public Schools, we have 52,000 students, 118 sites, and we have a central kitchen. So a lot of these things are being made and cooked in the central kitchen and then redistributed out to school sites for finishing. So just, we have a central kitchen model that we use. So I failed to mention that earlier. So we make this work through planning, strong partnerships, and strategic use of grant funding. And when I say strategic use of grant funding, sometimes people receive grant funds or grants to purchase local. And instead of buying things like Apple, we look at items that we usually don't get to put on the menu or things we typically couldn't afford to help expose kids to those things. So our approach is really focusing on innovation and operational readiness to ensure like long-term success while also exposing students to new things. So we leverage grant funding to expand access to local foods. There's a lot of cross-department collaboration, not just internally with procurement and operation and district leadership, but also cross-city, like working with the City of Seattle, and other organizations. Partnerships with local producers and chefs, and staff training. So make sure the kitchen staff is prepared through targeted training, clear operational readiness. How do we plan on implementing these dishes? What tweaks are we going to do while staying true to its nature? And the investments in working closely with the city of Seattle with these chef-led trainings and expanding our access to local items helps us just being creative, and that creativity also inspires kitchen staff. Instead of serving the same thing, they get more invested, and they love seeing the opportunity for students to try new things. This initiative demonstrates how strong strategic funding, strong partnerships, and staff investments can successfully bring culturally relevant, locally sourced meals into schools' cafeterias in a sustainable and scalable way. The more scratch cooking we do is more affordable than buying these ultra processed items or super processed items. And it gives the opportunity to really represent the diverse cultures around. And, you know, we are slowly incorporating more Asian Pacific items and dishes, and because a large percent of our student body is that, and a large percentage is not. And so it helps that student engagement because you can really learn about culture through food. And that's really important to us.
Yeah, I think I'm up. Thanks, Aaron. My name's Chris. I work for the City of Seattle in our Office of Sustainability and Environment, manage the Healthy Food in Schools partnership with the school district and with Aaron's team. I just wanted to bring in kind of the perspective of a local but external partner, like separate from the district, and talk a bit about how this partnership works. And really overall, talk about what we are trying to do or what we thought our role could be as city government to support the great work that Aaron and the SPS Culinary Services team and the district are doing. So I work with Aaron and his team regularly on a couple of different aspects of the partnership that kind of outlined here. And also ongoing kind of work to identify like what can we do next to bolster their efforts, and a USDA Farm to School grant application that we applied for and help fund the culinary trainings and expanding local procurement is definitely one of those pieces. Um, but really, Aaron and SBS are the leaders in transforming school food in Seattle, particularly to reflect Seattle's Asian American, Pacific Islander, and Hawaiian communities, and many other cultures in Seattle, and how menus can reflect that, and do more scratch cooking, culturally relevant foods, more local sourcing, and farm to school also. Um, and to put it a little bit of context, we're also, as a city, responding to community and youth needs and priorities for our local food system in Seattle through our food action plan. So we have, it was updated in 2024 and has one action specifically focused on this area of work around school food, along with other actions related to growing support for local food procurement across institutional food access programs. This area of work in particular, just to bridge to the trainings and local food procurement Aaron talked about, we applied for a USDA Farm to School grant. That was a big help the last couple of years, to bring in the chefs and be able to pay them to consult on culinary trainings and developing menu recipes. Essentially, we just pass through those funds, a big chunk of it, to SPS, to use and contract with those trainers. This work on school food started almost 10 years ago, though, so we've been at it for a little while. Definitely thanks to the sweet and beverage tax and the recommendation really from the community advisory board almost 10 years ago now for the city to do something and work on improving access to fresh foods at school, supported by revenue from the sweet and beverage tax. That started first with FFEP, the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program that's locally funded. It's based on USDA, but slightly different. And now to expanding work to support SPS, with kind of the whole tray, right? Like school lunch and breakfast as well. So the three main areas of work here are increasing student access to fresh, healthy foods through a fresh fruit and vegetable program and some nutrition education we try to do along with that. Supporting SPS with farm to school, more fresh foods through expanding staff capacity to do that procurement, and menu planning at SPS, and a little bit of funding to support sustainable like purchasing, just buying locally made and locally grown foods. And then partner engagement. And there's a little bit we can start maybe in the Q&A touching on some of the methods that Aaron or SPS has used too around surveying and meeting with students and community groups to get input and feedback. But one way we do that has been through the school meals and food education working group with community partners and student engagement. And actually later this afternoon, a new student advisory group that is from 3 or 4 or 5 different high schools providing input on the menu and new items and what's working, what's not. And the school meals food education working groups also advocated for universal school meal policies at the district, state, and federal level, along with just looking for other ways to support food and school garden education. So the fresh fruit and vegetable program, especially for this crowd, want to clarify this is all locally funded at this point, though initially it was to augment and actually extend the impact of the USDA funded fresh fruit and vegetable program to more schools. But the way it works now is 29 schools participate, providing 5,000-ish students enrolled at those schools with free fruit and vegetable snacks about 3 days a week, usually through the cafeteria lunch line, and definitely focuses similar to the USDA program on a variety of different fruits and vegetables, expose students to more produce items. And we do focus a lot on using that program to support local farmers and do more locally grown foods and working with Black, Indigenous, and people of color owned farms as well through a couple of different suppliers that the city actually contracts directly with. Cascadia Produce, Food Oasis, and IRC New Roots that are some of the growers and suppliers of produce. We work with Feast, that's student-led and student organizers do outreach support at a couple of the high schools and engage students too on what kind of fruit and vegetable items they want to see offered through the program, and do a little bit of education just by supplying the participating schools with food education books and a few speakers sometimes that come out and do education at participating schools. So Buying with Purpose, what we call our initiative for farm to school, farm to institution, actually working now too, not just with SPS, but other institutional food programs in Seattle. So this is where we put our farm to school work and supporting SPS to buy more local ingredients from sustainable and BIPOC-owned food producers, supporting the culinary trainings that really is a way to unlock using more local foods in school meals. And this has looked like a little funding for staff support and staff capacity and position, but also a little bit of kind of incentive funding or a little extra, purchasing dollars that complements our state level WSDA farm to school purchasing grant, which is a much larger pool, but we have found great ways here, especially with some of the examples and some of the key partners and ingredients to feature locally made, Seattle made, even if it's not Washington grown, since that wouldn't qualify for the state level farm to school purchasing grant. We use those for the cabbage and all kinds of other great ingredients. But for local tofu, for example, locally made in Seattle, obviously the soy is not grown here, so it wouldn't qualify for the state grant, but we used some of those city funds to pilot purchases of those products along with some of the other items you see there. I think I'll pass it back to Aaron to wrap up.
The purpose of what we do is to make sure that cultures are properly represented, create great talking points, and create that welcoming environment within the cafeteria, and also just being able to introduce students to new cultural items, and also make other students feel welcome and make them feel like that they're at home while they're there in the cafeterias. So exposure to diverse foods helps just builds overall better school cafeteria relationships. The impact is amazing. Just getting requests, students who never expected to say they never had salmon before, they get to try it, or they might have seen this dish and now they get exposed to it. And it just helps, especially if it's a student that might be a minority at a school, and they get to see their culture there and help them get new connections and friends at the school, because they get to talk about, these are things that we try, and they're happy that other students get to experience what they experience. So this is why it matters to us, and this is why partnerships are important for us to be able to do things like this. So thank you.
Go for it, Weston. You're up.
Okay, thank you very much. Aloha kako. Welcome, everyone. My name is Weston Yap, Farm to School Coordinator for the Hawaii Department of Education. Just want to say a quick mahalo to Tricia Bautista for the opportunity to come together and speak with you. And my coworker, Jennifer. Jennifer is our school garden coordinator. She'll go into some nice detail about all the good work she's doing, not just on one island of Oahu, but across the state to build up our school garden opportunities and education curriculum. So just a little bit of legislative background. We really appreciate that this is about Asian and Pacific populations, legislative background, April 30th, 2021, under the Biden administration, a proclamation was signed to recognize both Asian Americans and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders for this Heritage Month. And it's really allowed us to feel more of a sense of place and appreciation of not just the cultures, but the foods we bring to the table. So, question, where is Hawaii? We all know geographically where it is, but just being so isolated out here, about 2,400 miles from California and 2,800 miles from Alaska, and about 3,000 miles from Japan. We import about 85% of our food supply. As a state that's thrown around a lot. But here at the Department of Education, we're really trying to reintroduce a lot of the starchy vegetables, the corms and the roots to kind of go head to head against white rice, which a lot of us grew up on and love, but we have to import that. And so we'll describe some of our recipes to explain how we're trying to influence the students' palates, again, to push some white rice aside. In the chat, we have this question: where is the place you call home? And I know that we already kind of said, hey, where do you work? But also the food influences that you grew up with. If you could talk about maybe as a child where you grew up, and were there any cultural influences that really kind of adapted your taste buds to what you like to enjoy today. This is a map of our 6 main islands. You see there's a blow up of Oahu. And we did that in the bottom left corner just to show you where our schools and campuses are located. So our education system was founded in 1840, and Tricia, I'll have to spend a little time on this slide, just to let you know. So it's a statewide district, which is different from a lot of other states where things are more parceled out. Our current enrollment as of this school year is about 163,600. And oh, pardon if there's background noise, folks. We have 7 islands pictured here, 6 main islands. We talk about one school food authority over our 258 schools. And in the chat, yeah, if you can just talk about where you grew up and your influences, I appreciate it. And Oahu is blown up because that's our main population concentration. Yeah, we have 70% of our population here on the island of Oahu. And whereas the Big Island is the Big Island because it's about 62% of our land mass, and that's also the largest concentration of most of our agriculture, papayas, macadamias, coffee, lettuces. If you've visit the Big Island, because we have some Mauna Kea, which is actually from the ocean floor to the peak is actually taller than Mount Everest. There's a lot of different microclimates, which allow us to grow a wide variety of different foods. Our challenge is there's just not a lot of land mass to grow, for our friends in the Midwest, hundreds and hundreds of acres of a particular singular crop. We do a lot of agroforestry and diverse farming. In our school districts across the state, we serve about 109,000 meals a day, breakfast and lunch. You'll also be seeing some slides. Actually, in these color table here, you can see that there's different kinds of kitchens. Some are single site, some are central, some are satellites. What that means is some schools actually cook for other schools nearby. The next slide shows our ethnic diversity, alphabetically ordered. And you can see that in terms of different palates and different taste buds, we work with a lot of different kids. And we have some longtime Native Hawaiian populations. We also have a large military population where students come in just for maybe 6 months, a couple of years, and they travel on again. So that's a little bit of a challenge to try and get all students to enjoy the same foods. But at the same time, that's why we're here. And that's where we're trying to work on supporting our recipes with in-class and in-garden education. Let me know if the background noise is a bit much, but I'm going to keep plowing through. Actually, Jennifer, this is a slide that you're going to be doing on the legislation, so I'm going to hand off to my coworker.
Thanks, Wes. So school gardens have a long history in Hawaii, all the way back into the 1850s. They're documented, but unfortunately, they were not common in schools in the late 1900s, like 1990. And so it was really through partnership and individuals who really like revitalized the school garden movement in Hawaii. Part of that was the Hawaii Farm to School Network, which was formed in 2010, which became a really strong advocate for state legislation and support of farm to school. This gives you kind of a brief summary of our recent legislation related to farm to school that supports our programming in the Department of Ed. So another framework that has really supported this work is the wellness guidelines. So as required by USDA, our local wellness policy includes these two wellness guidelines, which have been especially supportive of our farm to school initiatives. Meals and snacks include fresh and locally grown fruits and vegetables when possible. And nutrition education includes culturally relevant activities that are AINA-based and hands-on, such as food preparation, taste testing, farm visits, and school gardens. In addition, we have Nahapena'a'o, or HA, which is a department-wide framework which reflects Hawaii's unique context and honors the qualities and values of the indigenous language and culture. Ha, which is the Hawaiian word for breath, are 6 outcomes: sense of belonging, responsibility, excellence, aloha, total well-being, and Hawaii. So the acronym is also breath. We work together as a system and with the community to strengthen conditions for HA with our students, staff, and communities. The Farm to School Plan, this is one of our most recent publications. I'm happy to announce that the department did publish in October 2025 a plan that focuses on these 3 goals: that 30% of food will be locally sourced for our school meals, and a lot of people will say like 30% by 2030 is kind of the catchphrase. That's what we're moving towards. Goal 2, all students will participate in agriculture or nutrition education. And we're still trying to, I guess, understand what that could look like. What is agriculture education? What is nutrition education? It's really very broad. And then every public school in Hawaii will have a garden. So that's the work that I get to support the most. Wes, back to you.
Thank you. So this is the list of some of the recipes that have been long-standing, but some are new. I really appreciated Seattle kind of listing their recipes because I saw that the hands of Roy Yamaguchi, Chef Roy. He's also been a factor in some of the recipes we're developing as well. But you can see just under the breakfast, uwala, sweet potato, ulu is breadfruit, kalo is taro. And this is where we are trying to reintroduce a lot of our local starches, where we talked about trying to take on white rice. There's um, been an issue of what is local food. We've had to legislatively define it, even though Hawaii is an isolated state. There's things in terms of procurement where we had to define what is local. So just a little bit of background. There was an act called 175, and fresh local agriculture products are 100% grown, raised, and harvested in Hawaii. Fresh local agriculture. But to make space for local value-added and processed products, our current law is where at least 51% of the product's primary agriculture product is grown, raised, and harvested in Hawaii. So I've been using a reference to like jam, mango jam. At least 51% of that mango in that jam has to be from our backyards, and then the 49% in theory could be imported. Okay. And then the other thing about the slide is I list some of the vendors, Kako Uivi, Huli Ulu Co-op. Partnerships and collaborations are critically important to the progress we're making. The next slide shows a chart on the right-hand side with immigration waves that have come into Hawaii. The photo on the left is 2 guys eating out of the classic portable lunch. This is the precursor of the bento in the container. And then you can kind of see in the photo just how different cultures have come in and brought their influences. So Hawaii's modern multi-ethnic cuisine was born from different cultural waves of plantation immigrants. 1880s to the 1950s, these waves came. The graphs kind of showed like one wave of immigrants would come in and they would kind of work their way through the plantation system and then branch out and open grocery stores or other businesses. But there was also something at play too that just kind of illustrates how food and recipes exchange. A lot of the times is neighbors sharing with neighbors. But there were also there's periods of time where the plantations kind of owned everything, the hospitals, the schools, the housing, and if you made them upset, they'd kick you out. So back in the 1940s, there were actually long time strikes, 6 week strikes for one of them in the 1940s, where people, social workers, community organizers said, okay, the plantations aren't going to like this. But what they did was they got together, formed soup kitchens, shared pots of stew, all cultures together, organizing hunting parties, fishing parties. And I just bring that up because sometimes, we like to exchange recipes and flavors in a peaceful way, but sometimes because of what's happening in terms of living situations and political events, people come together in other ways, and that ability to cross cultures and languages and really work together to keep your kids fed is another powerful way that we're able to make sure everyone has food to eat. Okay, I'm going to go on to some picture slides, but thank you for the prompt. What is the name of a person who inspired your journey here today? And we're talking context of food, an uncle or a neighbor who shared something with you, taught you how to garden and farm and raise food. In the chat, if you can put that, I think that's a fun exercise. Chicken pasta Florentine. So our way of trying to reintroduce greens, darky leafy greens, into our menus and have the kids enjoy having it is to, well, if you have a recipe that's French or Italian, you cover it with Parmesan cheese. Most kids enjoy it. Here we have Swiss chard on the left, and we have taro leaf on the bottom. And I just put a photo on the right of a farm called Kaka'oiwi, where where there's a commercial kitchen that's been built on this site, and the farmers are taking produce directly from what they grow and pre-cooking it, freezing it, boxing it for our students to use. Not to steal from Seattle's Thunder, but we're doing a kalo poi parfait as well. What's interesting about this slide is that we're actually having taro from two different parts of the state. The poi in the bag is cooked and ground. It's about 20% water to 20% solids to water. That's the base, local fresh pineapple. And then kalo chunks are actually grown on the Big Island of Hawaii. It's a different variety called palehua, and that's also been pre-cooked, peeled, and then cut into chunks and added to the breakfast menu. Papaya chicken soup. So our Filipino friends have brought this. We're using local papaya, green papaya, bok choy. We import the chicken, but it's been a great throwback. A lot of the parents and grandparents that see this on the menu have been really excited to see the Filipino culture and Chinese culture utilized. Next slide. Next slide shows pork gesentes. So back in the year 2018, we were using local pork, and then we weren't. And we get a lot of local beef. But in terms of the local hogs, our local hog farmers have been looking for ways to collaborate for a long time. So this year we're able to bring that back with cubes. And pork centers, again, that's the influence of our Filipino friends and neighbors. What's interesting about getting this pork to the table is we've had to utilize 4 different organizations. We had the hog farmer, we had the harvester Hawaii Meats, then we have a fabricator who takes the large sections and cuts it into cubes, so the pork has to go to a different place of business. And then we have our distributor, operation called Waihata, who distributes around the state. So it takes a village to get the pork from the farm to the table or to the school platter. Okay, so we talked about ulu, breadfruit before. We're using it multiple ways, but this is a breakfast menu item that's been pretty exciting. When you take the breadfruit cut in the right-hand corner, cut it, cook it, dehydrate it, it loses about 80% of its in water weight. but the kids have really taken to the flavor that it adds, a slight sweetness. We still have to combine it with flour because it doesn't have the rise and the reaction. And then ripe bananas, local apple bananas, which are also called Manzano or Brazilian variety. Okay, so really enjoyed hearing about Seattle's central kitchen and the maturity. We've actually looked at that as a model to emulate. So thank you, Seattle. But number one is what we call the Manini program. We're finding that with a lot of our local farms and food hubs, they really wanted to participate in our school meal processes in terms of procurement, but it's just very hard with our volumes and distribution. So we've set up this program to one individual farm to one individual school cafeteria with a spend cap on about $5,000, which allows us to kind of give direct attention to that farm and not have to do the three public bids. We do want to stay compliant with laws on procurement. So that's been a great way to not only introduce the school students to a farm in their neighborhood, but also get the farmer to understand different hoops and paperwork they got to do to institutional sales. And then the regional kitchen concept, you kind of see these green circles around the state. So right now there's only one in the works that started construction earlier last year in an area called Wahiawa in central Oahu. You see Oahu Kitchen right there, kind of in the center. But the plan is to have kitchens on every island where we can really take advantage of the special commodities that they grow. We call it taste of place from their own backyard. Okay. And then this is kind of a timeline that really piggybacks on the earlier timeline of immigration waves, but just to give you some quick history. Ancient roots and pre-contact. The Polynesians arrived in the Hawaiian Islands, yeah, back in like, I think 700s. And then Captain Cook arrived in 1778. But where the Hawaiians brought all of their, what we call canoe crops, the breadfruit, the taro, the sweet potato, also hogs, chicken. They also instituted a thing called the Ahupua'a system, where every island is kind of populated by valleys where you could kind of have all your resources ideally from the mountain to the sea. And every Ahupua'a was kind of a neighborhood where they kind of respected their zone and they did a lot of trade and barter, although sometimes wars did break out. Captain Cook came. We talked about that. Beef came in 1793. A guy named Captain Vancouver gave King Kamehameha I a gift of cattle that ended up going pretty wild. And then we had to import Paniolos, which are our cowboys, to get those under control. Whalers and sailors in the 1800s. Then a pineapple first arrived in 1813. Want everybody to know that the Hawaiian pizza, pineapples are not indigenous to Hawaii. That also meant the introduction of mangoes and avocados. We talked about the plantation area. And then World War II brought a lot of martial law and rationing of food. So we got creative with Spam, which isn't native to Hawaii, but very popular here. And then the modern regional cuisine movement in the 1990s, which Chef Roy is a big part of. I put a photo on the bottom there of indoor hydroponic lettuce being grown. And then and above, Jennifer offered this image of the students trying to draw their Ahupua'a Valley to the Sea concept to understand how food is grown. And Jennifer, I'll hand it back to you. Thank you.
So to support the school food program and increase consumption of those delicious meals, we have the school garden program. The school garden coordinator position was established through legislation, just as actually Weston's, the farm to school coordinator position was established through legislation. Once the position was created, then we were able to have a school garden program. Again, recognizing that a lot of our schools had gardens, but now there's a little bit more support for those schools from the state level and coordination. My position is in the Office of Curriculum and Instructional Design, and my role is to provide technical assistance and resources for school gardens for the purposes of improving student health, developing an educated agricultural workforce, and accelerating garden and farm-based education. So I'd like to ask you, what would you like to grow in a school garden? One of the ways that we are fostering community engagement is the School Garden Advisory Committee. The School Garden Program convenes the committee. We've been doing this annually in person to strengthen networks of support, increase understanding of the context of a Hawaii school garden, and gather input on our program activities. This committee engages a diverse group of stakeholders from within the DOE system, so state, complex area, school, as well as from public, private, and community-based organizations. So the committee was really instrumental in developing what we have as a definition of a school garden, which is a planned space on campus to enhance student learning and strengthen Palina, which is a connection or relationship, to Aina, that which nourishes. So how many schools have gardens? We have about 90% of our schools reporting that they have a garden. So over 200 schools have gardens, but they are all very different. And when we ask how are the gardens being used, they're most often used to support standards-based instruction. So providing coordination with our educational specialists for the content areas is really important to deepen that learning. However, school gardens are also used for extracurricular activities, more than half. And many school gardens are used for to strengthen cultural connections, right? We see Hawaiian studies and Nahapena'a'o cited pretty often. And then about a third of gardens are used for family and community engagement. So what does a school garden look like in Hawaii? So across 225 locations, gardens are very different. And we also have from pre-K all the way to grade 12, we have everything from like a pot on the windowsill to acreage. We have one school that has its own natural spring. We have hydroponics programs, aquaponics programs. Some schools who aren't even ready to grow plants might have a rock garden or a peace garden. The idea is to be inclusive in the support of these gardens as a reflection of the context of their community. So this collage hopefully gives you a sneak peek at what we might have in our school settings. When we asked schools what they wanted for professional development, the number one topic identified was native plants. And so over the last year, we had the Hawaii Native Plants in Schools program. This was developed to promote garden-based learning, but also strengthen conditions for HA, reinforce connections between schools and community resources, and increase access to Hawaii native plants on campus. These two resources were developed in association with the program. And I'm hoping that in the slides that maybe you'll get the slides. You can actually click on a hyperlink. They're both available for free to download. Plants of Hawaii really recognizes and highlights the nuances between native, endemic, and indigenous plants, as well as introduced species through the Polynesian voyagers, our canoe plants, and other more recent introductions. Building on the success of the Native Plants in Schools program, this spring we also offered a school garden mini grant. And this was up to $1,000 per school to develop or expand their school garden with native and canoe plants. Again, aligned with our frameworks to advance the Hawaii Farm to School Plan, strengthen sense of HA, and support implementation of the wellness guidelines. It was really impressive to see what the schools were able to come up with that small bit of money. So Garden to Cafeteria, this is actually where Wes and I have been collaborating the most really this year, which on the school garden side, from school food services, in order to have fresh produce included in the meal program, it has to come from a food safety certified farm. And so on my side, I've been increasing capacity for schools to participate in a Hawaii Group Good Agricultural Practices program. We have 4 schools in Hawaii who now have their school gardens GAP certified. And 3 of these have gone through the protocols that School Food Services developed for them to be able to sell the produce and have it incorporated into their school meal programs. This is a really exciting initiative for our students and the staff. They're really proud of their achievements. And those are kind of the highlights. Let us know if you have any questions, and mahalo for joining us today.
Incredible. Thank you, Washington and Hawaii. And there's so many more examples that we heard through our outreach for for today's presentation. After hearing from these 2 amazing organizations and representatives of the Farm to School movement, and honestly, like I learned so much just now too, listening to Aaron, Chris, Weston, and Jennifer, the history, the stories, such rich in traditions and identities. And how that is all honored through food. It's incredible. All right. Well, we have one in the chat from Michelle, and it was geared for Aaron. Aaron, are dishes chosen based on the student population and dishes many students are eating at home? Do you survey families while exploring new dishes, or is it more about what local ingredients are available?
It's a combination of all of it. Sometimes we've went to different community groups and the feedback will be our kids eat this all the time. We want something different. Sometimes it's kids, this is what I want to eat. So it's a combination. We have a very diverse student population. So we internally we just have a chart of all the different cultures we like to hit. And then we like to bring in experts to give us great ideas on dishes to incorporate. And so it's a combination of family feedbacks, items that's available, and then just knowing from the 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 people who grew up and the experts in those fields to guide us in the right direction because we don't want to put something out there and sub out a important ingredient and then now it loses that culture, it loses being authentic, and we get a lot of and then we poorly represent it, right? So we make sure that we're able to execute it properly. Um, but the feedback just comes from a combination of everybody.
Thank you, Aaron. And Hawaii, you have a shout out from Sophie in the chat about your native plants in the garden. So would love to learn more about that as well.
Can I share something about the poi breakfast parfait or the poi dish that was served in Seattle and how it kind of inspired Hawaii?
Yeah,
Okay.
go for it.
Oh, okay. Well, we're at time. Just want to say, when that
Yeah.
came out, it really kind of lit a fire with our Honolulu, our State Department of Education to also do poi in the schools. So thank you, because it did push some procurement progress forward. And then the farmer is actually a Wesleyan Karen Yadao of West Kauai, apparently, on the southern side of Kauai. Uh, they said they were the ones who were shipping the taro over to Washington State, and you help kind of get them to help them recover from COVID and the down economy. So thanks for doing that. That's all. Thanks.
I love it. Thank you, Weston. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to pass it back to my colleague Jiyun to close us off. Again, thank you for your time and thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. So as you're heading out, just please remember to connect with us. You can always email us at info@farmtoschool.org. If you head over to our website, you can sign up for our weekly or monthly newsletters. And of course, we are active on socials and we do post about these incredible webinar opportunities and lots of other free resources that we create. So yeah, please connect with us to stay tuned and be the first to know about all of these wonderful webinars that we'll continue to have in the future. Thank you again to all our speakers. You all were amazing. I certainly also learned a lot. Hope you all have a good one. Thanks for joining us.